Today we're going to be looking at a scenario where civilization starts in India. Now, if you haven't seen the last episode of my other series, Swixo, then this is essentially just kind of that series, but instead we're looking at history from India's point, because in episode 21, spoiler alert by the way, Pavlos, however you want to say his name, Pavlos, he conquers Persia and then pushes into India, and he discovers a library that basically entails the history of India. Now, obviously, there's no way they'd be able to jot down everything that happens. Similarly here, obviously, there's no way I'd be able to jot down every single event that ever happens, but I try and do as much details as I can. Now, I said this was going to be a 5-part series, but that is honestly definitely a lie. It's going to be longer than that because I cannot do like 500 years in 5 episodes. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's up to you to decide. I don't know if you guys would rather me get back to the other stuff, but at the same time, I don't really care. I want to catch up the history with India. I'm probably going to end up doing something like this for China, maybe the Americas if people, if I decide at the time that people actually have been there the whole time. Don't know about that. I probably won't, and I probably won't even have people there, but we'll see. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into, this video, I guess. And, what story should we go with? Normally, right, in the actual series, I wrote a bunch of stuff down, but I'm just literally making this up on the spot. I'll probably write stuff down for later episodes. I actually think that's a lie. But yeah, what should the story be? I mean, in my eyes, there was always people everywhere in Swix, so it was just kind of the first recorded civilization was over in Venice. Similarly, the first recorded peoples are actually over here in Bengal. Now, I'd like to imagine that people have been kind of living everywhere throughout Swixo, and it was just kind of like where civilization has been recorded. So Venice was like the first place civilization was written down, and I guess the history survived in the modern day. I don't know, it's up to you and your interpretations, but we're just going to say that the first kind of evidence of people is actually over here in Bengal, as we kind of see the first traces of Bengali civilization exist kind of around here. Now we are kind of back to the ethnicity layer for this first part. This is not a country, this is an ethnicity. We see the Bengali people migrate all along this river basin down here, or like the Bengali Delta or whatever. I mean, obviously there's names of the rivers, but I don't really know what they are. But nonetheless, we quickly see the kind of Bengali people spread quite far and wide. Eventually, we see some Bengali people go ahead and migrate down the coastline down here until eventually they kind of meet this river, and the Bengali people kind of don't go past this river because it's kind of seen as, I don't know, not sacred or something in their pagan religion. But nonetheless, Bengali culture and I guess kind of the people do spread quite nicely. We also see Bengali people kind of spread down this way. And eventually we see kind of the foundation of our first civilization over here. This kind of purpley Bengali colour. Now, I actually hate this colour. Is it like a stronger purple better? Maybe something like that, I guess. But nonetheless, we see this Bengali country expand quite a lot, actually. And they eat up a lot of smaller neighbours. Now, unlike the Venetian one, I'm not going to make random irrelevant neighbours. So, yeah, just kind of pretend that when this country is expanding, they are eating up their smaller neighbours. But over a while, we kind of see this country end up consolidating a piece of land mass that looks something a bit like this. And in terms of their major cities, we see that their capital will go ahead and be here. We see that they will have kind of a major trading city around here. One also down here, here, here. And we also see a few more kind of scattered about. In this Bengali region, there is quite a lot of people. Now, obviously, most of these cities aren't going to come into existence this early on in the existence of this kind of country, but I'm just going to put them in for now. However, we see over here that a kind of rival country has kind of appeared, which is kind of this red Bengali country, which has its capital down here. While some kind of major cities include its twin city, which is actually this city right here. These two cities are kind of twins in the fact that they're both like pretty, I mean, I'm making this up, that they're pretty good naval ports and are like twin naval cities. They do also have a few kind of inland cities, but they don't have anywhere near as much population as the kind of purple country. And finally, we see the creation of this blue country up here, which actually isn't really one country, it's actually more like five kind of countries. And essentially, this country up all the way over in the north is actually kind of in, like, these countries are all kind of vassals of this big kind of blue one up in the north. So they will all go ahead and have their own respective capitals, which will look something a bit like this. And after some border readjustments, we kind of see our area looking something a bit like this. However, eventually we see a succession crisis kind of occur over in the purple country, which kind of triggers a very big regional conflict. As we see the red country create the square alliance, teaming up with the blue country over here to kind of take down the purple country, which is kind of like a tyrannical country. As we see red Bengali troops quickly move in, capturing the city. Their kind of superior navy blockades basically this. Despite being smaller and having less coastline, the red team's navy is much stronger than the purple team that took more of a land focus. While over here, we see blue team forces quickly capture this major city, crossing this river. Meanwhile, over here, we kind of see the secession crisis is between two main factions in the country, which the factions look something a bit like this. This is kind of what the sides are in the kind of civil war. We see over here that the purple team has actually managed to take down this major city, which is pretty bad as it kind of leaves the gates open for this major city to fall. And eventually we see the main foothold of the kind of orange opposition has kind of fallen. However, over here we see that the blue team is continuing to launch an invasion and do incredibly well on the purple team. And they're kind of near the capital. However, it's at this point that the purple team is actually going to strike themselves an alliance. And you might be like, who? There's literally no countries they can ally with. And to that, you're kind of right, but you're also kind of wrong, because we see the purple team will get this country to flip itself over to their side. And a few days later, we also see this country follow suit. And suddenly, the purple team now has a brand new foothold behind the enemy front lines, which they will use to quickly pillage all of these subjects. And suddenly, the blue team is now completely stranded from their land. If you're wondering how these guys have troops and these guys don't, these guys, you know, they kind of kept back a lot of their forces from the blue team, which the blue team kind of noticed, but they didn't think much about it because it's like, hey, we're going to win anyway. But yeah, ultimate betrayal. And we also see these two countries kind of do a bit of a tag team to invade into the main blue team. Meanwhile, over here, the blue team is kind of forced to completely withdraw its troops, as the blue team faces a decisive loss here, where their leader is killed. And with that, there is nothing stopping purple team troops from continuing their advance over into the blue team. But you might be like, what is the red team doing? Because there's no way they've not done anything. And you're right, they have pushed their boundary over here, but they haven't been able to cross this river due to some nice fortifications on this line. And eventually we see from up north that the purple teams have managed to kind of form this little like river front line over here. So it looks something like this. And when the purple team focus their forces on here, we see the far superior land forces outmatch the, well, I mean, these guys are superior navy, but this is a land battle and they will be pushed back. And eventually this major city falls. As we see, the main red team force is destroyed over here. Now, they aren't really encircled because that's not really a modern tactic, but they are destroyed in the battle. And eventually we see the red team kind of has no choice but to sue for peace. And this is made extra worse when we see that the orange team is finally evaporated out of existence. Well, almost, we do see this tiny part of the orange team actually live on over here. And we can go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. And taking a look at this peace treaty, we see almost a complete eradication of the blue, red, and I guess kind of orange teams. The orange team does get their independence. The purple team was like they really couldn't take this and was like, whatever, we gain a lot more land out of here. Also, all of the kind of vassals that defected got directly annexed into the purple team. Whether or not they wanted that, I'll leave that up to you. But it seems they didn't really have much of a choice, as they were well and truly annexed. But this kind of leaves the red team to kind of expand beyond where they came from. As we see the red team expand their borders down here. However, this conflict kind of had other effects, and it basically kind of meant that everyone was kind of leaving this region. Hold on, let me get myself a bigger brush. During this conflict, we saw a lot of people kind of go in these four main directions to kind of escape the conflict, which has kind of led to some migration. We also saw some people leave by boat, specifically some of these orange people down here. Now turning on the ethnicity map, we see that these people will kind of settle this island, or I guess this kind of island chain down here. Now over time, this culture kind of evolves into something different. So I will be at least trying to kind of color it in a different color to the normal yellow. They're still Bengali people, I suppose, but it's kind of meant to be like a sub-ethnicity. There we go, that's good enough. But nonetheless, we see people eventually migrate up this river over here as a kind of new way of life and a kind of new identity forms around this kind of river basin, maybe? I don't know if basin's the right word. We also see up all the way over here, kind of towards this mountainous region, there's other separate identity emerges. And finally, down over here, we also see around this, what's it called? Delta, maybe? I don't know. This kind of green ethnicity forms. And finally, these kind of blue peoples over here exist around this region. Now, was that maybe too many ethnicities for this region? Potentially. Should maybe some of these been sub-ethnicities? Maybe, but, you know, we'll give this a go. I can always change it in the future if I don't like it, but I think this is fine for now. We also saw some people make the treacherous journey all the way across the continent, as they kind of chose to settle down in the Gujarat Peninsula, like so. And finally, we saw people evacuate all the way down to Sri Lanka, as we also see this kind of Sri Lankan identity emerge, although I think I need a different colour. Yeah, this is good enough. As eventually these Sri Lankan people kind of spread off the island of Sri Lanka. Now, there's actually kind of a land bridge here. I don't know if I can be asked to draw it in. There we go. That is a very terrible land bridge, but no, why not? But yeah, the Sri Lankan people do kind of end up spreading like so. And last but not least, the final migration group is actually over here in whatever this peninsula is called. And these people kind of settle around here. We see down over here in Sri Lanka the creation of 5 new states. Is that 5? Yeah, that's 5. Over here, we see the creation of this pretty large state over here. We see up over in this region, let me get a good colour, this kind of green country created. And finally, we see down over here in this kind of Myanmar region, the creation of 5 new countries, well, 6 new countries, with one of them being a lot stronger than the others. And finally, we see on these island chains that 4 new countries exist. Maybe I'll do like a daily update on whatever the hell's going on this island chain. But yeah. Now, surprisingly, we don't see signs of civilizations in either of these 2 regions. At least not yet. But anyway, we need to go over to Purple Bengal, as they're going to be expanding a lot more. As we see Purple Bengal expand to look something a bit like this, as they are by far the biggest country on the map. Meanwhile, we see that the majority of the Gujarat country has kind of been assimilated under one country. As you see, the Gujarat people have kind of left Gujarat and now look something a bit like this. And now, in terms of capital cities, we see this kind of orange country will have their capital city right here. The green one will have theirs here. This one will have theirs right here. This one's will have theirs right here. Right here. And finally, this country will have its capital there. And then going down to these countries, they will all have their capitals just dotted around. I mean, there's not really many places to put them. This country will have theirs right here. Although this one will be kind of a bigger city. Coming down, this country will actually have the bigger city, the only kind of number 5 one. This Sri Lankan country will actually have their city on the land bridge. Actually, that's kind of unrealistic. They will have their city right here, but kind of between the 2 land bridges. This country with their capital here. This one will have their capital at here. And finally, this yellow one will have theirs right here. Actually, it will move down here. And finally, the Gujarat country will go ahead and have theirs all the way over here on the very, edge of the peninsula. Now we're going back over to the Bengali countries as they were doing a bit more expansion. As you see, the red Bengali country expand to something like this. However, we see up over in this green country that some people will go ahead and break away. As this blue country kind of expands up into this mountainous region, while over here this green one kind of does the same. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the ideologies of all these countries. As we see, the purple Bengali country is a monarchy. Similarly over here, the red Bengali country is also a monarchy. And surprisingly enough, the blue country up here is also a monarchy. These 2 countries up here are both oligarchies, which I will be representing by this kind of yellow color. I don't know if I have an oligarchy. I hope I don't, because I've just made up a new color. But yeah, these countries are ruled by oligarchs. We see this reddish orange country is also a monarchy. However, we see that all of these tiny city-states are actually part of a brand new ideology known as a merchant republic. It's like a republic which Carthage is, but it's, well, merchant-based. You also see that this kind of orange country follows this ideology as well. These guys down here, I mean, who really knows what ideology they are? This country over here is a full-on republic. Well, we see down here that Sri Lanka is kind of split between monarchies, oligarchies, and merchant republics. And finally, we see up over here that this Gujarat country is actually known as a Gujarat Republic, which they kind of have their unique system over here, which is a pretty interesting ideology. I don't really know how to explain it, but there's kind of a king, but the king is kind of elected, which kind of does trigger some crises, which isn't really the best system because it does lead to a lot of like succession crises. But you know, we'll save that for next episode. And for the final event of the video, we see a very powerful country emerge down here. This country is a republic. And for the final event of the video, we're going to do power rankings. Now, I don't know if this video is super short, super long. I'm kind of using the first episode to kind of test it out. So I know for next time, you know, whether or not to speed up, slow down, do more events, yada yada. I was going to record all of these in one, but there's no point doing that. I'll kind of do this one first and then see after I've edited it how long it would be. But anyway, that is enough yapping. Let's go ahead and get to the power rankings. The number one country, if you couldn't guess, is this kind of purple Bengali country over here. The number two country is actually this republic down here, which I haven't even given the capital. Number three is this dark cyan country. Number four is the red country. Number five is actually this country. They actually have quite a lot of trade coming in from the city, from, I guess, anonymous, I don't know, local communities. I mean, even though it's not a country here, there could have been a country here. I guess it's just kind of not written down in Indian history, and that's just going to be my excuse for bad storytelling. Number six is going to go over to the Gujarat country. Number seven is going to go over to this orangey red country. Number eight will go over to the blue country. Number nine will go over to the green country. And number 10 will be blue Bengal. And yeah, that is the kind of power rankings. Now, in terms of timings, I'd probably say this first episode starts before, I think it starts after Venice, like Venetian history. So Venice is still like the birthplace of history, civilization or whatever. But I think this episode starts before, obviously, the Vishaman is born. And it ends after the Vishaman is born. So maybe like 15 AV. No, don't really trust those dates. But basically we started before the Vishaman was born, but after Venice was born. And then we ended after the Vishaman was born. I think I said that right around. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I'll see you in the next video.